because there are news organizations that are making declarations about who's won the presidency and so forth. So I want to unravel this slowly but surely, because we live in a constitutional system, not a PR system, not a left-wing system, but a constitutional system. Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 of the Constitution provides as follows, I quote in pertinent part, "Each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors equal to the whole number of senators and representatives to which the state may be entitled in Congress." In other words, the state legislatures determine how to select their electors. Isn't that what that means?
That's exactly what it means, Mark. And it got lost in the Pennsylvania shuffle. The founding generation sitting in Philadelphia undoubtedly thought, well, should we have the state Supreme Court make the determination? No, we want what? This is a very democratic with a small d approach. We want the legislatures, those closest to the people, the state legislatures. They're the bosses, not the governor. And what happened in Pennsylvania over these recent weeks is a constitutional travesty. Governor Wolf tries to get his reforms, his vision, as he was entitled to do, through the legislature of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. He failed. He then goes to the state Supreme Court, which by a divided vote accepted the substance of what Governor Wolf was doing and then added their own nooks and crannies as well. Happily, in recent days, we've seen Justice Samuel Alito step in as a single justice. He has the power to do it. And essentially, in a very short order, say the legislature is the boss. What the governor did, this is my interpretation, is utterly unconstitutional. What the Pennsylvania Supreme Court did is utterly unconstitutional. It's just clear as the words that you just read. Exactly right. In fact, to count every vote may be a crime. It may even be a crime under federal law. It's definitely a crime under state law if that is, and here's the key word, illegal. And that's why you see, and it's shameful that Vice President Biden's people and the vice president himself are saying count every vote and selling a lot of T-shirts. That is a potential and an invitation for absolute lawlessness. I know of a situation very quickly where a recently widowed woman knew how her late husband would vote. He was deceased. That's a human tragedy. What's a travesty is she cast his vote for him. We call that absentee ballots? No, we call that an illegal ballot.
And they say count every legal vote, except, of course, they have, and there's widespread reporting on this, pushed the Republicans out while they're counting every legal vote in the city of Philadelphia. I'm told by the Speaker's office there they have over 100,000 provisional ballots. You don't hand out provisional ballots like lollipops. There are, again, conditions for those.
Right.
I'm gravely concerned, Judge Starr, that what's happening here is all of the checks and safeguards that have been built into the electoral process by the Constitution, by state constitutions, and by state legislatures are being litigated away. You know, Donald Trump was selected president in 2016. We knew he had won. He wasn't actually selected at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. the next morning, but we knew he had won because it was overwhelming. They're still counting votes now. They're still counting votes now because chaos seems to be the objective. The more chaos you can create, the more uncertainty you can create. The Democrats, Judge Starr, seem to want to vote earlier and earlier and count later and later. What's the point of that?
Yeah, both ways. Well, it doesn't bode well for confidence in the election process. Everyone uses the word integrity. I think on the Republican side, we're using it with every breath that we take. Can't we have honesty and transparency and openness and so forth? And I must say I've been disappointed in some of the reporting that has gone about the process, willfully blinding themselves, some of the reporters, to the reality of what's happening before them. Yes, what's happening, I think, in a limited number of cities, but they're all large cities, and certainly two of those large cities have a history, Detroit and Philadelphia, a sordid history of voter fraud and convictions. We're not talking about allegations and political rhetoric. We're talking about the judicial process having resulted in criminal convictions, including, in times past, the sitting state Senate majority leader who hailed from Philadelphia went to jail because of voter fraud. So failing to insist on checks and balances, sunshine, please let the sunshine in, and that's in the form of these observers who have meaningful access. It's not access, right, Mark, if you're in the cavernous convention center and you really can't see 60 yards away what's going on. That's form over substance.
The U.S. Supreme Court. So this matter presents itself to the United States Supreme Court. So in my mind, three things can happen. One, they don't take it up in full, even though I strongly feel they should. Hopefully there's 4 justices, as I understand it, that are required. Number two, Sam Alito, and hopefully a majority, will say, okay, those segregated votes, they were segregated out. Those are unconstitutional. Don't blame us. Don't blame the legislature. Right. You can blame the governor, and you can blame your state court. Or number 3 that nobody's thinking about, and I don't particularly like it. The court could say, look, those segregated votes from our perspective are unconstitutional, but we're going to leave it to the United States Congress to determine whether they're unconstitutional or not, and the state legislature is free to send its own list of electors based on the original statutory election laws. We'll now know how many because they're segregating the votes. If, in fact, the President of the United States won under the existing law before it was changed by the state Supreme Court. In other words, there could be 2 sets of electors set, one certified by the governor, one certified by the legislature under the federal Constitution, and Congress can sort it out. What do you think of those 3 possibilities?
Right. Heaven forbid for 2 of them. On the one that I think is the more or most likely is that the Supreme Court will now do its duty in the Pennsylvania case, because it was very clear from the outset that what the governor did and what the state Supreme Court did was utterly unconstitutional. So it's a lawless act. And at this stage, the Supreme Court has a solemn duty in light of the nature of the issue and the stakes at hand, has to take the case. And I think, by the way, the earlier determination by Justice Alito to call a halt to any counting, if that had begun, of these set-aside ballots, the ones that I view as illegal. They're just illegal. They don't and should not count. His determination to do that is a signal. It's not an assurance, but it's a signal that a majority of the Supreme Court would uphold what Justice Alito has done. We'll see. That's a guess, but it's a reasonably educated guess.